1994 was an amazing year for the Super Nintendo in North America, seeing the release of heavy hitters such as Mega Man X, Super Metroid, Super Punch-Out, Donkey Kong Country, and Final Fantasy VI. One title that thankfully didn't get lost in the shuffle was Illusion of Gaia. It was developed by Quintet but published by Nintendo, which earned it some heavy promotion in Nintendo Power. Now, I gotta say, I personally have quite an affinity for this game. In fact, it was the very first game I streamed on Facebook of all places, back when my setup was terrible. So, needless to say, I may be biased, but who cares? Let's go! Illusion of Gaia, known as Illusion of Time in the PAL regions. Yes, this game served as something of a spiritual sequel to a previous Quintet-developed game called Soul Blazer. No, that's Sky Blazer, completely different game. No, that's Battle Blaze. No one even played it. Yes, there we go. Soul Blazer. Now, I say spiritual sequel because while there is no narrative connection whatsoever, they both share the same action RPG gameplay, and there are a few Soul Blazer Easter eggs in Illusion of Gaia. So what's this game all about? Well, the narrative can be considered familiar to the point of being comfort food, as it starts off with a young boy named Will who lives in an idyllic seaside village with his family and 3 friends. Right off the hop, he stumbles into a dark space and encounters Gaia, who just drops on him the fact that he must save the world from a coming evil. He also, coincidentally, gets a few nifty powers, like the ability to move things with his magic flute. His friends, of course, are stoked, and nothing's kicked off quite yet until he comes home to find Kara, the princess from a nearby castle, hiding out upstairs. Well, the guards arrive and drag her away, and soon you're summoned to the castle for what everyone knows is not a good reason. Sure enough, you're thrown in the clink, and your subsequent jailbreak kicks off the action. What follows is a fun, if not linear, narrative that has you reuniting with Kara, your friends, and a whole host of new folks, and flinging off to far-flung destinations. You'll come across cities, towns, villages, dungeons, and ancient temples, crossing continents, all in the pursuit of 6 mystic statues. As the narrative unfolds, you learn of an oncoming comet, which seems ominous to say the least. But I'll stop there because I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say that, That's not bad. Well, I guess well, that cat's out of the bag now, and yes, the comet is in fact the coming evil that Gaia spoke about, and it comes every 800 years and has the power to dramatically alter life on Earth. And yes, you end up fighting the thing at the end of the game, so spoiler alert. So what do I think of the story? Personally, I love it. I love the Age of Exploration setting with its sort of real-world locations, like the Nazca ruins and Angkor Wat. The 1 foot in a fantasy world, 1 foot in the real world thing has a certain heaviness to it in some instances, like when you visit a slave market, or you come across a morgue in a diamond mine. Or this part in a dreamlike sequence where you discover an ink and gold ship filled with people escaping the invaders. You then fall asleep and wake up on the same ship, except everything is completely dilapidated and there are bones where the Incans used to be. Whew. I also really love the cast of characters and how you and your chums go from playing cards in a cave to embarking on this great quest around the world. You only play as Will, but the others are interwoven into the story and sometimes even the action, like when Eric gets kidnapped by vampires and strapped to a bomb. Or poor Seth, the Millhouse of the group, who gets yeeted off a boat only to have his spirit reborn in a giant fish that communicates to the gang in this underwater tunnel through Morse code. While there is a hefty chunk of goofiness in this game, there are also moments that are quite poignant and intense, like this reclusive artist who essentially kills himself by painting himself into a canvas. There's this gravitas when you enter the room only to find his lone portrait. Or this time, when you play a drinking version of Russian roulette with one of the cups being poisoned. Or geez, how could I forget this one? Your gang gets captured by cannibals and are about to be eaten when Kara's pig Hamlet sacrifices himself on the fire so they'll eat him instead! Hamlet, no! Oh, boy, does that ever smell good, though. We also get lovely character development moments like the extended sequence where Will and Kara are stuck on a raft together. I know some folks probably hated this scene, but I love scenes that really slow things down and allow for some introspection and breathing room. There's also this air of mystery that permeates the game, which I love. You want to know what's going on, and when you find out, you want to know more. There's a lot of time spent unearthing stories from the past, but we also get a strange glimpse into the future at this one part, which really takes the scope of the narrative to a whole new level. If I had any qualms with the story, it would probably be the fact that some of the key story moments are a little underwhelming or unexplained. Like, you literally enter the dark space within 30 seconds of the game starting, and there's no dramatic reveal or anything. You just pop in there and, oh hey, there's a big head. I kinda wish they fleshed this out a bit more and you had more peacetime at the beginning in your starting village, learning fighting mechanics or bantering about with your buds or whatever before, holy shit, some big reveal of the dark space, but nope. You could be out of the opening village and starting your journey in 3 minutes flat if you rush it. I know people who don't like the slow pace of RPGs might see that as a plus, but I don't know. Furthermore, I would have loved the ability to go back to previous areas in the game. Not like a fetch quest, pad the game's runtime by forcing you to backtrack kind of thing, but at least the option to go back to places you've been. I know it wouldn't quite work in the context of the story because when you leave one continent for another, it's quite a big deal, so being able to flippantly go anywhere might take away from the feeling of truly being on a voyage. But at least let me have some way of getting those Christ-forsaken red jewels that I missed. But yeah, the story in Illusion of Gaia is a high point, and for this game, because it plays such a vital role, I'll incorporate it into my final score. Moving on. Gameplay. Does this game actually play well? Thankfully it does, and it's very accessible for casual gamers. Your character is very responsive and has a modest moveset that builds up over time. Will hits with his flute, which is dumb, but he can also run and do the aforementioned telekinesis. He can also change into the Dark Knight Frieden at various points in the game, bestowing upon him a stat boost and a slightly different moveset. For most of the game, you alternate between Will and Frieden, and it's pretty clear when you need to be one or the other, although it would have been nice to allow for this transformation on the fly, rather than having to be in a dark space to do so. The dark spaces, by the way, are where you can go to transform as well as save your game and occasionally learn new moves. There's also this part of the dark space which remains conspicuously empty for almost the entire game, until right at the end when you get the option to transform into a second character, Shadow. And wow, does this guy ever kick ass. Like, look, he just floats over shit. Why didn't they let me turn into him sooner? Come to think of it, it would have been nice to have a bit more characters to turn into, but whatever. Some of the dungeons are really cool, like this one flying sky garden that has you hopping off the edge and landing on the underside upside down. Other dungeons can be really bland and monotonous though, which especially sucks because there's no way to automatically leave them, meaning you'll have to walk all the way back to the beginning once you've got what you came for, and getting lost while doing that is such a huge waste of time. Like, I got the teapot from Mount Crest, now how the fuck do I get out of here? A cool thing that's sort of been brought over from Soul Blazer is the benefit of killing every enemy in the area. By doing so, you gain permanent stat boosts to either health, attack, or defense. And you can see how many enemies are remaining in an area by pressing start. What this means though is that when enemies are gone, they are gone. Permanently. So no grinding here. If you want to max stats, just kill all the enemies. Some dungeons end in a boss and some don't, which can make things occasionally feel a little anticlimactic, and the bosses themselves are meh. Like, I would have liked it if the bosses were actually intertwined with the narrative somewhat. The whole game you're told you're being pursued by the Jackal, and it would have been nice to have a showdown with them instead of just this happening. Jeez, oh god! Okay, this has to be the gnarliest thing to appear in a Nintendo-published game up until that point. Gah! Moving on. The way the game is paced is quite nice, with a healthy balance of narrative segments and action segments. Running around town and interacting with their denizens is quite enjoyable, and every area brims with character. Like this town here, which is all rich and vibrant and lively when you walk in, but then walk down an alley around back and it becomes a garbage-strewn shithole. And anyone who's played this game probably remembers this part, where you actually have to wait in line if you want to enter the house. However, there are parts where even the keenest of gamers will be wondering, what the hell am I supposed to do right now? Like, great, I played Lola's melody and a tile started glowing. What do you do now? Do you step on it? Nothing's happening. Let's see, run around a bit? No. Well, it turns out you need to stand on it and wait a good solid 12 seconds. Yeah, see how long 12 seconds actually is? Back in the days before the internet, this would have been a brutal stopping block, so Nintendo made sure the game was packaged with an 83-page instruction manual that spells everything out for you and spoils things worse than this video ever will. And finally, I have a few more tiny quibbles that bear mentioning. Like, for some inane reason, the last block of text in a dialogue can be dismissed by pressing any button, which seems like it wouldn't be a big deal, but sometimes the last block of text is also the first, and you get moments like this where you arrive somewhere new and you push up on the control pad, eager to explore, and oops. Geez, I hope that wasn't anything important. Also, they really could dial down the fanfare just a bit when you get an item. Yeah, yep, okay, yeah, wow, that must be some yak. Huh. But really, I don't have any serious gripes about the gameplay, so let's move on to the graphics. Hey, in the graphics department, well, what do you think? That's been looking pretty good in this video so far, hasn't it? I mean, there are the bland dungeons I mentioned earlier, which could use a bit more variation in their design and color palette, but the enemies look good, the bosses are big, and the towns each have their own distinct flavor. The overworld map uses a Mode 7 effect, which is pretty much par for course for any game with an overworld map on the SNES. I don't know, guys, it looks good. Let's just move on and talk about the music or something. The music. It's all but expected for any RPG-ish adventure to have a great soundtrack, and Illusion of Gaia does not disappoint. The village you start in has music that does a great job evoking its peaceful and tranquil nature, with these youthful and innocent-sounding flute melodies complete with seagull caws. And when any air of mystery needs to be conveyed, you get this ditty, which is ominous and profound, with warbly and bendy notes in the background in a pan flute melody. Oh, and if you say no when Gaia asks you if you want to continue your quest after saving, you get treated to what sounds like a frickin' Peebo Bryson song. The main dungeons that have bosses at the end each have their own music, but the no-boss sub-dungeons all have the same music, which is super dire but can go on and on because the bloody dungeons just go on and on sometimes. Like, when you first start the dungeon and it's hitting with this intensity, you're all like, oh yeah, let's go! But by minute 20, you're looking for any kind of break in the cacophony. Like, let's pick up an item or something so we can get that fanfare. There we go. The sound effects are decent enough, with enough pops and whacks and boops to accurately convey what they want to convey. You may recognize a few that were carried over from ActRaiser or Soul Blazer even. If I wanted to pick out something unique and effective about the game's sound, it would probably be the fact that each main character has their own unique sound effect that plays when their text bubble pops up. Like, Kara the Princess has this wimpy little sound that comes in alongside her pink text, which, in a weird way, adds quite considerably to her characterization. So, pretty good sound effects and great music overall. Let's talk value. Do you want to buy this game? Yes! Yes, you do! Oh, wow, this could not be more of a yes. You're getting at least 13 hours of gameplay here, assuming you don't get stuck, and if you wanted to go hard, you could try to find all 50 red jewels and fight the secret boss from Soul Blazer. On top of that, this game was never ported or re-released, making the Super Nintendo the only way to play it. And, as of this writing, a used cart only costs around $30, which is an amazing bargain considering Soul Blazer is just north of $100. Shit, a modern game can bilk you out of $30 in microtransactions alone, so what would you prefer? A classic, heartwarming action RPG, or a loot box that may or may not have that Darth Vader skin for your Call of Duty character, or however that works? Anyways, putting it all together, Illusion of Gaia is a charming and wonderful game with a standout story and accessible gameplay that is absolutely worth your time and money, earning it a soaring 9.4. 9.4. Yo! Sorry, man. Oh, have fun.